Welcome to Table for 92, element number 76, osmium. It's number 76 because it has exactly 76 protons within its nucleus. For osmium, I'm going to sacrifice my body for both science and your entertainment. I will present to you the smelliest cheesecake ever created to honor the smelliest element, osmium. Yep, osmium is arguably the smelliest element on the periodic table. It is, after all, enshrined in its name, osme, ancient Greek for smell or odor. Osmium has no biological role in the human body, so it's not found in foods and it isn't necessary for human health, although it does have some very toxic compounds. I live in New Jersey, so I basically have access to every food known to man, partially because we have one of the most diverse populations on Earth, and partially our proximity to New York City, where literally all foods in the world are available. We're like the, slightly jealous and bitter little brother to New York, but, we own that. So I have a Southeast Asian market not far from me where I can get durian all year round. Durian is easily regarded as the smelliest food on Earth. Anthony Bourdain once said, after eating durian, your breath smells like you were kissing your dead grandmother. Very descriptive. I have never had a need to try durian. I guess I've always wanted to out of sheer morbid curiosity, so I have no idea how I will react to this. Seems like there's, not really a middle ground. You either love it or you hate it. I gotta say right off the bat, osmium, not all that interesting. Not as interesting as the durian smells, that's for sure. That is something else. Osmium is a silvery white transition metal in row 6 on the periodic table, so pretty much like all the other transition metals, and just like pretty much all the other elements on the periodic table except for a handful, osmium is not found in a pure state in nature, so you won't be finding like osmium nuggets out in the wild. And it's not used in all that much stuff except for, weirdly enough, high quality pen nibs. Yeah, the tip of a pen. I guess that's a thing among pen enthusiasts. Like if you Google osmium pen, the first thing that pops up are like $10,000 pens. I honestly didn't know such a thing existed. $10,000 pens, and they don't even have like diamonds on them or anything. Osmium is the densest metal on the periodic table, so the quality of those crazy expensive pens does not diminish over time, but more about that a little bit later. When osmium was discovered in 1803 by Smithson Tennant, he was like, this smells terrible. He's like, I think I'll name it Smellium, but it'll sound cooler in ancient Greek. Well, that's not what happened. That would have been really funny though if you tried to name an element Smellium. You gotta wonder if the scientific community would have been cool with that. Probably not in the early 19th century. But yeah, the sense of humor of British scientists in 1803 was probably not what it is today. It's pre-Monty Python. But yeah, osmium was discovered in 1803 by Smithson Tennant. Objectively a very cool name, Smithson Tennant. By the way, he was a member of the noble class in Britain, which is predictable. For someone to discover a new element in the early 1800s, they almost all had to either come from noble or wealthy families for them to receive the kind of education that would allow for something like being able to discover an element. Not a ton of peasants made it up the social ladder without some, nepotism back then. So the Tennants, they weren't like ridiculously wealthy, but his family had long been landowners in and around Yorkshire and northern England, so young Smithson got to go to school, which was rare back then. He was always interested in natural history though. Apparently he figured out how to make gunpowder at the age of 9, which I'm sure his parents just loved. So yeah, don't mind young Smithson, he's just making volatile chemical compounds as a 9-year-old. Definitely nothing sinister there. So yeah, he gets his education at Beverley Grammar School in Yorkshire. There's actually a plaque dedicated to him for his scientific discoveries there. It is a very good school. It's one of the oldest in the UK and has some really notable alumni. He actually did study to become a medical doctor, but apparently couldn't stand the suffering of patients, which I do not blame him for. Medicine in the late 1700s was absolutely brutal, and they didn't even know about like germs yet. So he got into geology and chemistry, and by all accounts, he was an incredible scientist and belonged to all the great scientific societies of the day. He was also good friends with William Wollaston, who also discovered a couple of elements himself. So yeah, our buddy Smithson was in the right place and time to be discovering a couple of elements in 1803. Smithson was working with platinum ore, which he placed in aqua regia, a cool name for a mixture of nitric and hydrochloric acid. Platinum, as well as gold and some other metals, dissolved in aqua regia. If you remember my episode about George de Hevesy and hafnium, he dissolved his friend's golden Nobel Prizes in aqua regia to keep the Nazis from taking them, and actually recovered them after the war. So, you know, Aqua Regia, it's got some pretty cool history. But yeah, our friend Smithson Tennant was dissolving some platinum and immediately noticed not all of it dissolved, which led him to correctly hypothesize there was some kind of an impurity in there. This experiment had been done before, but everyone just assumed that impurity was graphite, and Smithson Tennant did as well. But he, in fact, had a strong background studying graphite. He was probably the first person to confirm graphite and diamond were made of the same material, carbon. So yeah, it wasn't graphite. He realized that the impurity was, well, I'll let Smithson tell us himself from his publication to the Royal Society. When the alkaline solution is first formed by adding water to the dry alkaline mass in the crucible, a pungent and peculiar smell is immediately perceived. This smell, as I afterwards discovered, arises from the extraction of a very volatile metallic oxide, and as this smell is one of its most distinguishing characteristics, I should on that account incline to call the metal osmium. I mean, it smells pretty good. It smells kind of like grapefruit. It does look like a weird alien cocoon. Okay, time to add a bunch of butter and sugar to make this durian taste more like something an American could consume without getting sick. First off, springform pan. You need to cover with parchment paper so the cheesecake won't stick. Take your springform pan to the side, measure how thick it is, cut 2 pieces off. That'll cover the entire side. Butter the bottom and sides of the pan so that the parchment paper sticks to it. Don't butter the outside of the parchment. You'll do that before the cream cheese mix goes in. Simple cheesecake graham cracker bottom, 8 ounces ground up graham cracker, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, a few pinches of salt, a whole stick of melted salted butter. I like salt. I think it's fine in baking. Get your graham cracker crust, press it into place in the springform pan, put that in the oven at 375 until it's firmed up. You got a little bit of that Maillard reaction going on. Then you gotta let that sit and cool down before putting the cream cheese mix in. All right, this is New York cheesecake, so no sour cream added. That stuff will make the crust sink. 3 pounds cream cheese at room temperature or 6 8-ounce blocks. 2 cups of sugar, 3 tablespoons bread flour into the mixer. Combine until smooth and consistent, then add 4 teaspoons vanilla extract, a few grindings from a fresh lemon off the lemon tree, and a quick squeeze of that lemon right in there. And combine that until smooth, then add 4 eggs and 2 egg yolks. Always important with cheesecake not to overmix because that's how you get air bubbles in there and that will cause it to sink. It's kind of like pancakes. You don't want to overmix the batter. Osmium. Smellament. Apparently osmium smells kind of ashy and smoky, so not as terrible as durian is supposed to smell like. I mean, I think it's fine. Oh, and by the way, during the process in which Smithson discovered osmium, he also discovered iridium, which is the 2nd densest metal on the periodic table, second only to osmium. Osmium is incredibly dense. It's the densest. It's so stupid. But yeah. So, like a liter of water weighs 2.2 pounds or 1 kilogram. That's like where a kilogram comes from. A liter of osmium weighs 50 pounds. But being the densest metal should make osmium really useful in industry, right? Nope. It turns out that even though osmium is the densest, it's actually quite brittle. So only like 1 ton of osmium is mined out of Earth's crust every year. And that's only because they have to extract it while they're making pure nickel. So yeah, that's osmium, the smelliest element or the smellement. Yeah, I didn't come up with that. Someone at the Royal Society of Chemistry did. Ha, smellement. So I guess British scientists do have a sense of humor. Oh, by the way, Smithson Tennant, our old buddy, he died in a terrible way. He was lecturing in France right after Napoleon's first exile, which would have been a really exciting time for scientists in Europe. You know, like the Napoleonic Wars had kept scientists all over Europe from corresponding with each other for years. But yeah, Smithson was on his way through France, crossing a small bridge on horseback. The bridge collapsed, the horse fell on top of him and killed him within an hour. He's buried in a public cemetery in France and only got to give 1 lecture while living there. But yeah, you probably won't have any experience with osmium in your life unless you are a hardcore pen nerd. I don't know, you know. You can go to one of those pen stores in Brooklyn. You can find a $10,000 pen if that's your thing. It's got the cool osmium pen nib on it. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Butter, sugar, 3 pounds of cream cheese probably calmed down the taste of the durian. So let's see. Looks pretty good. That's fantastic. Like, I don't know why durian is the smelliest in the world. I don't know if it's like a genetic thing, like how cilantro tastes like chalk to some people, or they gave us some watered down durian. That's fantastic. That is really good. Thanks. See you next time.
I think these are great educational videos and I'm extremely entertaining. So, you know, smash that subscribe button.